Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. In this episode, we will start implementing our base classes. The very first class that I want to implement is item object. Okay, for the item object, of course, we developed some interface and we want to implement that interface, but before that, let's fix that namespace on top. There we go. And this implements item object. And right now, ReSharper and IntelliSense from Visual Studio will yell at me that, hey, you have some missing members from the interface that you need to implement. I hit enter, and it selects every member by default and hit finished. Now, remember, ReSharper previous than 9.1 wouldn't port them like this. It would port them with throw something like that, not implemented exception, throw new implementation. This ReSharper is wise enough to say, hey, we have this. But to be able to see that inside inspector in Unity, first thing we need to add is system.serializable on top of the class name. It will show any public property, but we may want to add some logic inside get and set. So it's a good habit of using them, and what I did is going on the name of the property, Alt Enter, and choose to property with backing field and hit enter for the name. So it makes a private same type of variable, and it gets returned that private variable and set that private variable equals to value. This is the oldest school, but now I can add any logic here I need to, and you will see me doing at least this adding logic in one of the classes later on. But it's a good habit, so let's have backing field, icon, and value, price, burden, and although we don't have these classes, ReSharper is wise enough to use the class name there. So, and the unGUI, I want it to be virtual. What virtual means is that if I inherit any class from item object, I can override this unGUI later on, and I don't need this part. Now, before things getting messy, let's change the stuff here. You need to add serialized field if you want to see a private member inside inspector, and I like it. Now, each time I use copy paste, as Peter said, it will jump into the bottom line. Please, if any one of you know how to get rid of this behavior, comment me in the video. I didn't find it myself. But if you know how, please tell me. And I'm a big fan of using regions, and I highly recommend you using them. So these are back fields for properties, and we end the region here, and another region, setters and getters. Another region that I didn't implement anything on it yet, constructors. And then another region for methods. This will let me to close the regions that I don't have anything to do with them anymore and get rid of them. Bam. Nice and organized. So for constructors, I could go with few, but I, as I said, like to give you guys or the users the ability to have variance. So we have a constructor that is default constructor without anything in it. Then another constructor that only accepts the name. Another constructor that accepts the icon. And how I'm adding this fast? I'm using alt insert constructor and space, space, and bam. So after name and icon, we will have name, quality, rarity, and icon. And then a constructor for name, icon, value, price, button, quality, basically everything. Okay, now you see this. Remember, if you have a string type variable, if you don't give that variable anything in a constructor, and you want to use this class like blah equals new item object, it will call the default constructor and it will yell at you that, hey, there is a null point exception, and you never understand that the null point exception is related to this property because we are not instantiating it to anything. So here you need to say name equals to something. You can say this, it will work. You can't say null, it won't work. You can say system.string.empty. This is exactly like saying this. I like it better. So whenever I have a constructor that doesn't instantiate the name, I need to add it myself. And that's the only time. Also, when I'm not instantiating the sprite or quality or rarity, we need to instantiate them. So we say icon equals to new sprite. And whenever I'm not instantiating the icon, I need to instantiate it myself. And by instantiating, meaning assigning by the constructor itself. And that was the only place. Then we say quality, no, underscore, quality equals to new, not boo, new item quality. And I know that I have tons of errors because I didn't implement this class yet, but hopefully you will see how this works before jumping back and forth between classes. So again, rarity equals to new item rarity. And here we are instantiating quality and rarity. Here we are giving it. Here is a trick. I want the icon to be on top of quality and rarity. I hit Control, Shift, Alt, up arrow, and it will move up. Resharper. I love you. And by that, we are for time being finished with this guy. The constructors are finished. The backend fields are finished. I need another region, and I call it private variables. Those will be variables that only will be used inside this class itself. And that is end region. Thank you. And we will come back to this onGUI method in future. That's our item object. That was the biggest one. Then we have item quality and item rarity as problems. So let's add them. A class called item quality. And because I assigned a namespace into this folder, unless I close the Visual Studio and come back, it will keep it in mind and use it, and I like it. And of course, this guy is implementing our interface item quality. Nothing is easier than these guys to do this. With backfill, with backing fill, with backing fill. And now regions. This is back fields for properties. And before we forget, it's system.serializable, and these guys are serialized field. And finally, region constructors and the region. Okay, now for the constructors, we will go with default one. Then we will have a constructor that only has name, the constructor that only has oh no, it should has name and icon. Then another constructor that has name and description without any icon. And finally, a constructor that has all of them. Is that all? Yeah. So again, we say name equals to system.info system.string.empty. And that was the only time. Cool. Icon equals to new sprite. And there we go. So now we are finished with item quality. The next one, and by the way, if I go into item object, now you see that some of the errors on item quality is gone. Now we need to work on item rarity. So another class that is item rarity, and item rarity is almost duplication of these guys. So I will copy all, paste it, and before I forget, we are implementing item rarity, and it asks, this is resharper again. It says that you added something and you need usings. Hit Alt Enter and it will add them. Okay, the setters and getters are okay. The only thing that we need to replace is the type for the constructors. Sometimes using copy and paste is cool, but you should be careful about that. Every now and then you may get some problems. So we finished item quality, item rarity. We have two more to go. One is item category. And guess what it will do? It will implement item category, missing members, all of them, and backfields. Now this guy has only two constructors. One is the default and one that has the name, because the booleans, well, you can assign it later, and you can say name equals to system.string.empty. Okay, And here. There we go. The last class that we will implement today is equipment slot itself. And that is equipment slot. And of course, equipment slot will, as the other ones, equipment slot, implement the interface and its members, convert the members to backfields, repetitive stuff. Then for the constructors, remember, always have the default constructor. That's a good habit. Even if you need to leave it empty, it will be good. So we have one with name, we have one with ID, and I totally forgot to hit the space. Thank you. One with the icon, and again, come on, work my brain. There we go. And then another that has name and ID, another that has name and icon, and of course the last one that has everything. Cool. Now again, I have this code and I can totally use copy pasting here. Don't forget to instantiate the name, guys, else I promise that null point exception will get you time and time until you figure that, oh, I forgot instantiations inside my constructors. So icon equals to new sprite. And remember, the ID is integer, so we don't need to instantiate or assign anything because by default it will be equal to 0. Actually, if I go and equal to 0 by now, resharper will grayed out telling me that, hey, this is redundant. You don't need to do that. It's the default value. Why do you bother with that? So the ID, we have the icon and one more name and ID. Here we have the icon and we have everything. So if I go back into my item object, now we have no problem at all. If I go back to my interfaces and equipment slot, we have no problem. Equipable was the one that would use equipment slot, and you see that it's working now. I didn't implement some of these like equipable, item destructible, stackable, and prefab, because those will come later in use when we are going for item categories. Okay? That was for this episode. And next episode, I will start adding my statics, and of course, I will implement the class, but we will add to that class little by little as we go forward. And after that, we will come back and add a base database. Remember? We have this here. And that is a generic database that we will use. And we will see how we can use that generic database later on. Have fun, everybody. Bye-bye.